Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
All right, welcome back to the Speak Nerd and Enter podcast. Mark, Sean's over there somewhere. Kelly's there looking bored. Rich has extreme lighting. Welcome to the show. So, guys, what are we talking about today?
Mark, I know, or I've heard through the grapevine, apparently, that you saw the latest foray into the MCU. And
I did.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear your opinion on something that I'll admit I'm not anxious to see, but I'm anxious to see what you think.
No spoiler
All right,
alert. Oh man, I'm trying to see this movie after this. After we're done with this.
All right, for
recording.
real, no spoilers. I can do a no spoiler. So today is, as we're recording this, the 18th. So it's Saturday, the 18th of February. The movie came out yesterday, so I saw it after work last night with my wife and my son, and so she got tickets for me and was like, "Hey, we're gonna go see that." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So we went and saw it. Going into this, and I think I mentioned it in one of our previous episodes, like I really don't feel that the current MCU slate of movies, it's all been downhill since Thanos, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing really tying them all together. You know, Shang-Chi was its own little thing, and a couple of the other ones, they're trying, and I get it, and they're fine for what they are, but there's nothing tying the whole cohesive, thread together. Yeah. But we're getting that with like this multiverse thing, right? And so Quantumania deals with a bit of the multiverse and whatnot. Kang is the bad guy. No spoilers, Kelly. And there's a lot that I don't want to say because other people are going to go see it. But anyway, going in, I was really hoping like, okay, this is, not some new characters like the Eternals or like Shang-Chi. This is Ant-Man, who's one of the Avengers. And like, we're back with the main people that we all know and love. So is this going to be like a firm, let's move this story along? And in some ways it is. And in other ways it's like, not. You know what I mean? Was it a good time? Yes. Was it fun? Yes. Was it everything I'd hoped it would be as far as driving the Kang storyline or the multiverse storyline together? Yes, they did do some driving of the overall plot forward, but not in the way that I want or that I would have hoped. You know what I mean? Like you're definitely setting up, Kang and the multiverse, but that's all it's done. It's like we know there's Kang, we know there's a bunch of them from the Loki show, and we know there's a multiverse of them, and honestly, most of that is in one of the post-credit scenes. There's 2 post-credit scenes, so make sure you stay all the way to the end. But having said that, was this movie a good time? Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fine for what it was. I had some humor. There wasn't anybody that was particularly like a bad actor. There was one, again, without being too spoilery, there's a bit of a MacGuffin at the end where, it's an Ant-Man movie. Let's just put it that way. You'll know what I mean after you go see it. As how do you have an Ant-Man movie without some ants in it, other than just the people that turn small in and of themselves? So I actually enjoyed Cassie like learning how to do the Ant-Man thing. Like Ant-Man would be like he's like you turn small and like you hit him, and then you turn big like right as you're hitting somebody, and it does the damage. And there was a couple of times where she's trying to do it and it's like she just bounces off because she didn't turn big at the right time, and she's still trying to figure out. So some of that was kind of like cute in that everybody else is an Avenger or a superhero and has done this before, whereas this young kid hasn't. So that was kind of nice. I enjoyed it. The Bill Murray is in it for 5 minutes or something like that. It's weird because you're in the quantum realm, whatever you want to call it, and there's all these wacky looking like alien dudes that they run into, which again, from a character design standpoint, really interesting stuff. But some people just look human, and that I didn't really understand.
The Star Trek alien kind of thing.
Yeah, but I was like, okay, so Bill Murray looks human. He doesn't have any extra eyes or arms or legs or anything like that, whereas all these other things are weird looking. And
things that got sucked in there by accident. All of them are
right, but he's not. Bill Murray's character specifically isn't, because he's asking like, "Oh, what did you guys call yourselves?" And there's like human. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's right." Like he's clearly not human, but he looks human, and they don't explain that. And I get it. It's Bill Murray. You want him to look like Bill Murray, that's awesome. But you know what I'm saying? Like that was the one thing that kind of took me out of the ride was, okay, clearly there's people here that look human. Is there some, do I need an explanation? No. But the other people who are humans, like had blue skin, or they had things that was different about the little, at least there was some Star Trek alien things to make them appear like, humanoid, but not human. Whereas Bill Murray looked 100% human, where clearly his character wasn't. And so I was like, okay, I'm not sure I understand that. Do I have any, that's probably one of my biggest complaints, if anything, the only real complaint.
Let me ask you some stuff that I've heard. Okay. Because I haven't seen it, so how can I be spoilery?
Right. And I'm being very non-spoilery. There's a lot more I could say, but I don't even want to set up some things that were spoiled for me before I went in, because I watched some YouTube videos and it didn't hurt the movie, but I don't want to put that on any of you guys or anybody that might be watching this when this comes out 3 weeks after the movie has been released.
Now, these are a couple of the things I heard. One, that and by the way, wouldn't it be great to see a Marvel movie if it's going to have Bill Murray in it? I really want to see a Marvel movie that's done by that dude who did Rushmore and The Life Aquatic.
Yeah.
What was that one? The Hotel in Germany. All that. His movies have that style. I would love to see a Marvel movie with that style. He's so funny to me, especially Quantumania. It sounds like that would have been great. The whole quantum realm and all that stuff, and you zoom in on the little model scene that he has and all that with the wacky ironic cuts and all that. I would love to see that. But I digress. I heard that the special effects suffered, that the CGI was embarrassing, as I heard it described a number of times in the reviews, that a lot of people had difficulty with the way MODOK looked, because it's not a secret apparently that MODOK's in there.
Oh, yes, MODOK is in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say this, like MODOK, at several points, like takes his helmet off. It's like got this mean looking faceplate, and you take it off, and no spoilers, I'm not gonna tell you who's under there. But it looks like an extreme close up, almost like a fisheye lens, a little bit of the face of the person who's under there, and I could understand some of the thought process behind people saying that, but no, I don't buy it. Like MODOK as a character from the comics is wacky looking and disproportionate like that. And so I thought they did a pretty good job of showing what that would look like, but it's a live action movie being played by, I'm not going to say a non-CGI character, but there's an actor playing MODOK, and you're seeing that actor's face, even though it's like crammed into this, floaty, flyy thing or whatever. I thought it was fine. Like I would not agree with that statement that it was the CGI was like falling down or it was embarrassing. If anything, I would say it was the difficulty of trying to translate MODOK from comic page to a movie, and I thought it was fine. I didn't mind it at all.
Okay. And that the humor was not good. It wasn't funny. It wasn't up to the original Ant-Man. I didn't think the second one was all that hilarious either, but
I will say this, Luis was not in this movie.
Okay.
So that was a bit disappointing. I didn't remember that. Like it coming out, I was like, "Oh yeah, Luis wasn't in it," and so he was. I think a really good foil to Paul Rudd's more deadpan humor. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it was funny, and of course, it had some moments or whatever. Few of them were to me like laugh out loud funny, but there were plenty of lines in there. In some ways, I think they tried a little hard to like cram some humor in there. Like I'll give you an example. When he was working at Baskin Robbins in the first one and his boss fires him. So his boss is in this, because now he's like Ant-Man, he saved the world. And so he makes a couple of like, bit things. And at one point he's like, I came out of retirement to make, a cake for your daughter's birthday or something like that. And the cake looks terrible. And then they go and taste it and it doesn't taste good. And it was like, that felt really forced It's like, let's jam this guy in from the first movie in a couple of little brief scenes, and he's trying to be like all helpful, and he does a terrible job. Like Baskin Robbins isn't going to put out a terrible cake. It might not look good if you don't do a good job decorating it, but I mean, come on, it's ice cream cake, man. I mean,
they wouldn't have that problem if they were Carvel. Let's be honest.
That's true.
Carvel
so anyway, there were a couple of little things where I could feel like the humor was a tad bit forced or whatever, but I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was, it wasn't anything that.
Besides the omission of the obvious and painful omission of Carvel, I also heard that it was one of the thorns that was in people's side, or some people's, I guess, was that it was there was a comment in there that they something about socialism is good or something like that.
Oh,
and that was the one who did that.
Huh?
That was the original Ant-Man who talked about ants being socialist.
No. There's a comment in this one that.
Yeah, no, I do remember the comment, and I'm trying to remember the context of it.
That's what I was wondering, if it was truly him saying, "Hey, socialism is good." Yeah, it was China, or whether it was
it wasn't, because I think it actually did have more to do with like talking about one of the ant colonies or something along those lines. Like, I'm with you, like it didn't, as a hardcore anti-socialist, anti-communist, believe me, if that comment had been like, a sledgehammer message hitting someone over the head, I think I would have remembered it more than I remember it right now. It just was. Okay, I get it. You're talking about like this ant colony, and they did this cool thing, and they're like, wow, like I remember the comment. I don't really remember the exact context of it. So again, people on YouTube, which is probably where you're hearing a lot of this stuff from, they just love to cause controversy and get some rage clicks and all of that kind of thing. Like, everyone's like, oh, Ant-Man's terrible, and everybody hates it. And I'm like, no, Ant-Man's not terrible. It's not the best. It's not, Infinity War or Captain America Winter Soldier or some of the ones that are the high points of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's not the bottom tier either. You know what I mean? Like, I think.
Would you put it more on the level of, let's say, the bottom of the, what would the bottom of the scale be? Eternal,
and one of the, what's the one World? Iron Man? Dark World, Thor, Dark World,
3
and then
or 2 were not great.
Right.
Those ones,
2 and 3.
Yeah, right.
Black Widow, maybe I'd put down at the bottom.
Yeah, well, yeah, not quite as low as those others.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I'd have it down there. But where would you put it on a scale?
I would put it lower than the first Ant-Man. But somewhere in the middle, because here's the thing: when Ant-Man came out, Ant-Man is not a popular character. He's not Iron Man. He's not, Captain America. It's Ant-Man. Everybody's like, what? You're
right.
And we all went into Ant-Man with low expectations, and came out that was a really fun heist movie, and it just happened to have Ant-Man in it, and it was really good, and we enjoyed it. And then seeing Ant-Man in Civil War, like, he kind of stole the show in a funny way, and in that movie. So Ant-Man kind of snuck up on all of us, and in a good way. The second one, it was like, okay, it was Ant-Man, but it wasn't as good as the first one. This one is not as good as the first one, but I don't think anything can be, because Ant-Man came out of nowhere and surprised us, because nobody's sitting there going, man, I really want to see a movie about Ant-Man. Right. Nobody wants to see a movie about Ant-Man. And yet Marvel has gotten me to see 3 movies about Ant-Man, and they're all pretty good. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. Like, they're fine. They're good. If the one daughter who didn't see it wants to go see it again, I'd probably be like, sure, I'll go see it again.
See, I always liked him more as a supporting character. It seems like his character was better written, better explored as a supporting character than the primary. And I don't fault.
I'll give you that, but in this movie, it's not just him, right? It's him and Janet Pym or Van Dyne, whichever, and then her parents, you know what I mean, are both in it, and then Cassie's in it, and so there's like 5 core Ant-Man, whatever you want to call it, that are
I've just never felt them as. I don't dislike them. I just never felt as strongly about them as I did some of the other characters. But I thought, like you said, when he showed up in Civil War and all of that, he was great. I loved his scene in Civil War. That was great.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I guess maybe I'll go see it. It'd give me an excuse to go and get some kebabs at Springfield Town Center or something.
Mm-hmm. yeah. Like I say, it was a good time. I wish it would have done a little bit more to drive the current phase. I don't know what phase we're in, phase 5 or whatever. I wish it had done a little more to drive the overall story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe forward.
Right.
And the only way it really did that was like, okay, we've got Kang in it. Everybody knows he's a bad guy. And there's a little bit in the post-credit scene where you get more of a feel for like the upcoming threat.
Yeah.
But putting, a 1 minute or 30-second
filler, right?
It's like, we want to know what's going. It was similar. It felt similar to me where Thanos was like, fine, I'll do it myself. And he picks
right.
up.
Right.
You're like, oh, something's coming, and it had a little bit of that kind of feel like, and again, I'm not going to spoiler what's in there, but you're going to be like, okay. So there's a couple little things where they tease what's coming, but I wish we were 3 steps closer to what's coming because we've had 4 or 5 movies that have not gotten us any closer.
Right.
And I realize they're going to try to bring in the Eternals, and they're going to try to bring in, the Black Knight, and they're going to try to bring all these other guys and Shang-Chi and like work all them into a thing eventually.
Yeah.
Because I get it. Marvel has such a huge roster. Like from, if you look at the sheer number of Marvel superheroes, for what, if they want to bring a majority of them into the cinematic universe, whether it's on television or whether it's on films, there's a lot of characters to work in. So I can also see that maybe this is kind of one of those, let's bring in a bunch of characters, and once they're all on the table, now we can tell that next story. Because Secret Wars with like 5 heroes is not really that much of a secret war now, is it?
Right.
I'd go 7 out of 10, maybe an 8 if you're feeling charitable.
How was the character of Kang in this?
He was fine. I liked him. Okay. So this is Kang the Conqueror, is who we're talking about here, and they're setting him up as like this big bad guy.
Was he more the eccentric weirdo out of Loki, or was he more?
No, he was not the eccentric weirdo out of Loki. This was more. He was nice. Like when you talk to him, you didn't get this sense. It was almost Lalo from Better Call Saul. Where he was like this really bad guy, but he was always super friendly.
So he was more Lalo, but not Lilu.
Yes. Yeah. But he wasn't like goofy friendly. You know what I mean? Like at some point. Yeah. And again, there's a lot I don't want to give you any spoilers, so I'm trying to like dodge around it. But like he can be mean, but he's only being mean when other methods seem to have been exhausted. You know what I mean? He's like, okay, at one point he's like, Scott, I want you to go get this thing for me. And if you don't, I'm going to kill your daughter. And did you think I was joking? As he's like doing some kind of torture-y thing or whatever. Slight spoiler. But you know what I'm saying? Like you did get the impression that, yeah, he would hurt this person. And near the end of the movie in the third act, kind of big battle-y scenes or whatever, you can see him getting a lot more vicious, but he didn't snarl and twist his mustache the whole movie, like a bad villain might.
So let me segue from that then, or segue you from that into a comparison, because you've now finished the First Wall. Is that the one you finished? First Wall or Lost in the Dam?
No, I finished Lost in the Dam.
Okay.
Is First Wall the third one? Is that the next one?
First Wall is, yes, the next one.
Okay. I have that one on deck, but I haven't listened to that yet.
So what do you think of that? Because you've finished now Ant-Man. You've now finished that book in 40K. 2 very different genres. Very different. Same amount of humor, I'd say. So what do you think?
Well, again, the scale of Lost in the Dam was great. Like I loved how we're following this one dude around who's basically a cannon fodder conscript, and kind of what he's doing. Who?
Katsuhiro?
Yeah, that guy.
Katsuhiro.
Him, Katsuhiro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Katsuhiro. Yeah. Like I thoroughly enjoyed that. You're like, who's this guy? What's he up to? but he happened to be in the right spots to, you know, advance the storyline when Sanguinius shows up, or when, you know, that one tower where, you know, the shield failed and they blew up that tower and he happened to be like really close to it. And, you know, so like I enjoyed it, but again, that book is good, but that book is not a story or a movie with a beginning, middle, and end. It's a little slice of, oh, that was good. Now I want to get to the next book to see what happens after that. You know what I mean?
But in comparison, don't you wish that the Marvel movies had been a bit more like the book rather than the other way around? Because from what you were describing about the movie felt kind of like, okay, it's all right, but it's not moving anything along until the end credit scene, and that's just a little bit. Yeah. Whereas this one is it's part of an overall story, an overarching story, and you want to get to the next part to find out what happened to Katsuhiro. So,
yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, like I said, you know, Marvel, it was fine. I had no issues with spending a couple hours on Friday night doing that, but I wish it was a little more, a little something extra, a little, you know, it didn't quite hit all the things I wanted it to hit.
I got you.
And I don't know if this is Marvel being cautious. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and again, I keep coming back to Winter Soldier. Like, that was the most incautious movie that Marvel could have done, right? Because it was great. The fight scenes were amazing. Just, you know, in the elevators, I could watch that all day long. When Nick Fury gets attacked by the Shield dudes on the streets of DC, like, that was a great one. I mean, there was lots of good stuff going on there. And at the end, it literally had stakes for the entire Marvel universe because Shield blew up and went away. Right. Yeah. Because it was revealed to be, you know, Hydra. And so, like, you come out of that movie, you're like, wow, boy, did that change everything. And like, I think they were in the middle of doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and those guys were like, oh, I guess we got to change up our show now. you know what I mean? Like, there were some real ramifications from that. And it did move the plot forward of the whole thing and set up, you know, we're going to go look for Bucky, and it set up a lot of other things, which was great.
Right.
And it didn't feel safe. These last few movies have felt like, okay, we're going to put the Eternals over here in their own little sandbox and let them go. But it didn't really feel like it affected everything else, the rest of the world. I mean, yeah, we had this big statue that was like emerging from the planet.
Which, by the way, they haven't done anything with.
Right. There's no mention of that in the subsequent shows or movies. Right? It's not like they're like, you know, oh my gosh, what's going on over here?
And then suddenly it's not, and there's this huge statue coming out of the ocean, but never mention of it.
Yeah, nobody's over there doing scientific excavations to find out that stuff or whatever. Nothing. So I'm like,
Forget all about it.
Yeah. So yeah. And what's it like? Shang-Chi was fine. In fact, it was better than I expected it to be. Like, going into that one, I was like, oh yeah, they're trying to pander for some Chinese money, because the box office over there is significant, you know? And so going into it, I was like, okay, this is, you know, a money grab for the Asian market, but it was a very entertaining movie. Like, I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to enjoy it. It was like, okay, cool. And the little teaser at the end where they had, you know, Wong and the other guys, like, and some of the Avengers, like, oh, we don't know where these rings came from. And you're like, oh, okay. Still waiting on a payoff of that, which I know they're going to get around to, but how long ago did that movie come out? Right. So, like, you know, between the shows and the movies, like, and I understand there's been a global pandemic, which has possibly slowed down the release of, well, possibly nothing. It did shut down Hollywood. They weren't making the movies they wanted to make for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. Rich, you can shake your head, but Hollywood stopped making movies. This is not a political statement on whether, you know, you're concerned about the virus. Like, I'm not interested in even having that conversation. But the fact is, Hollywood stopped making movies for 2 years.
Yeah.
They flat out did, and they're still trying to ramp back up, right? We're 30% less movies being released in a given year now than was released pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's going to take a minute to catch up.
I'm willing to give the world a pandemic excuse, you know.
I know.
Well, we don't have enough pandemic.
Yeah.
Short supply pandemic.
Yeah, short supply. Why did the price go up 50%? Well, pandemic.
Pandemic. There you go.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Whatever. All right. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll go see it then.
You should go see it. I
I'll
give
go
it a
see it,
hearty
Sean.
half a thumb up.
I
I'll
know,
wait-
but you're
I'll
a
wait
shield
till
for
3.
everything. Everything I've hated you're. No, that was okay. I think, as a matter of fact, you need me there many times just so a movie gets pushed
This
into that
stinks.
category, because you know I'm going to come out like, oh, what was that?
Yeah, but Sean, you so rarely like any movies.
I know, but when I do, they're good.
Mm.
When I do, they are A-list. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yep, Boondock Saints.
Yep.
And when I don't like them, I do have good reasons. I don't just
You have
arbitrarily.
reasons. I don't know if you have good reasons. You're
My
like, what? The
reasons-
first guy they talked to was the bad guy. This movie sucks.
No, that's just a disappointing aspect. If
Yeah.
you look at the overall movie, like what was the one with Tom Cruise where they could see, crimes before they happen and all that crap?
Minority Report.
Right. That was an aspect of a movie that I thought was actually pretty good. Or Edge of Tomorrow, good movie, disappointing end. There was no cost, right? So I can differentiate between those two as opposed to just a bland nothing fest, or something that has so many issues that I just can't get into it, even though I do like certain aspects. Like Nope had great acting, had some very funny parts and all, very interesting parts to it, but the premise, the actual premise, was just, I don't know, goofy, jellyfish in the air, looks like a spaceship kind of thing. It just didn't.
I loved it. I thought it was a
See,
visual tour de force.
Yeah. Or I Am Legend. I remember that one, us coming out of there, and I was very disappointed because I remembered what the book was like. By the way, did you know that they're doing a sequel to I Am Legend?
Yeah.
So did the explosion not take at the end, or
I don't know, but
They're using the deleted ending. They're using the deleted
the
ending.
person who's in charge of it now says that they're using the alternate ending, which sucks because the alternate ending was happier, but they're supposed to be following more the actual literary work. So I'm not sure how they're working that out. It's supposed to be like sometime after all the stuff of the first movie. So I'm not sure exactly how they're going to work that out if the happy ending is the one they're using from the first one.
Okay, so segueing from that, have you guys been watching The Last of Us on HBO?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been watching that. I think but see, Sean's played the game, my son, and I've played it, and all of that. I don't know if you guys have. I'm imagining probably, I don't know, Rich might have, but
I have not.
Okay, so you guys had. They're doing a very good job as far as adaptations and that sort of thing go for that. That's the best I've seen, and I knew the acting was going to be great. I mean, as soon as you put the ruler of Bear Island and all that crap in there, and of course the Sand Viper and that kind of thing, I knew the acting, Ron Swanson and all that.
Right.
I knew it was going to be really good acting. Since the creator of the game was involved, I was pretty sure that it was gonna have the tone that the game had, and it's done a very good job of that. I think it's done a really good job of that. I even like some of the things they've punched out. The last episode, as a matter of fact, was my favorite that way.
I like that one a lot.
Very heartbreaking, wonderful acting. Acting. I can't remember the two actors' names who were in that episode, but new people. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Henry and Sam. But really well done. Really good acting. I mean, that just every episode is really good at pulling at the heartstrings and eliciting a great response. I will tell you the best thing about it, watching it with Helena, because she hasn't seen any of that, and especially her reactions in this last one, really good. So I've been enjoying that a lot. I don't know, how do you feel about it?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Like I say, You know,
unless your dog has something to say.
I know that. I don't know why this dog is whining at me. I mean, you know, I'm like petting him, and he's like standing behind me and whining the whole time. What's that, girl? Timmy fell down the well.
There's infected coming.
Yeah, there's infected coming.
We got clickers.
I know.
Listen, bloater.
All right, hold on. Hey, quiet.
I don't know if I agree with you about that, Sean. I've been watching it. I watched it with Indy because she played the game, and you know, it's just our thing. We'll get together. We'll watch it. I found a lot of it to be predictable, and the last episode I thought was just, I don't know. I felt like it was a cheap cop out on the episode. To be real.
Hey,
no, I'm sorry.
Up.
I'm listening to.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Can you guys hear me right now?
Mute your mic.
I did mute my mic. I guess it's running the mic through the other thing.
I saw you do it, but no.
Yeah.
You turned around. What are you doing?
This dog. I'm gonna go put the dog upstairs. You guys continue the conversation. I'll be right back.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kelly. Yes.
No, I was just saying that I found a lot of the show to be predictable. Like you know, because it's every apocalyptic story that you've seen already, right? I thought the Ron Swanson bit was interesting. I thought that was fine. I had no problem with that one. I liked that little bit of the story. I thought that was very well done. But especially in the last episode, like the last episode, I thought was like, well, that clears that out. You know, it was kind of disappointing to see that this whole thing. But that's the direction they took it. I wanted them to do something else with the story.
Well, I don't know what else you're going to do with an apocalyptic story, though. You know,
well,
other than, I don't know, they find Sears and go in there and start playing. I don't know.
No, but I mean, it's every apocalyptic story in as much as, oh my God, the humans are the ones that you actually have to be afraid of. Everything else is just sort of secondary to that.
Yeah. Well, in the game, it was even more so, though. In the game, it was preeminent. Was that most of it was about that, really. Rather than anything else. But I mean, all of them kind of been like that. If you think about Gears of War and, you know, as an example of something other than the apocalypse thing, you know, that kind of stuff, that's pretty much a lot of them is that way. It's fairly rare to find one where it's the Covenant show up and start fighting everybody and you got a definitive bad guy and you're fighting on the human side and you don't have to worry about so much about, you know, the human betrayal, at least not until you get to the fifth game. Or
well, the thing, I mean, what was the prequel to the Walking Dead that they put out? I think it's still going on.
Prequel to the Walking Dead?
Yeah, there was this sort of lead up to that.
I don't know. Walking Dead?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there was elements of that I liked a lot more, which was the onset of the actual events that lead to the fall of humanity. Whereas in this, you know, oh my God, somebody gets a foot fungus and suddenly we skip ahead 20 years and humanity has collapsed. You know, and I'd rather go through some of the motions of how the collapse happens, to be quite honest, rather than just cut to the chase and go to, look, it's now, you know, warring bands of humans trying to fight for resources. I mean, certainly you would get there, but let's give a little bit to the lead into that.
Meh. I know it's going to get there. I don't have anything against that. To be honest with you. But I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. For me, with that one, I guess I'm at the point where I just accept the premise. It's kind of like you're going to see a bank heist movie, you're going to see a rom-com, you're going to see, you know, a post-apocalyptic movie. It's just one of the genres now, you know? And I guess that's because, you know, I think about, like, in biblical terms, you know, the whole thing about leprosy, right? is that if you had leprosy, you were considered kind of like one of the infected. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You were shunned from society, put out. You come up to somebody else, they're ready to kill you because they don't want to get, because it was life or death. It was kind of like that whole thing. And I think that human beings over our shared history, it's just become like a genetic ingrained thing where we fear this sort of pandemic that comes out and just absolutely decimates. And the problem is that you got somebody who shows up, you don't know they're sick, they bite you, now you're sick, and now you turn everybody else into the monsters. You know, it's that whole leprosy thing. So I guess I just look at it like that's one of the genres now, and it doesn't occur to me, I suppose. So I understand what you're saying. Yeah. It's just, I don't
like
know.
The bit
pushed past it, I guess.
The bit with Ron Swanson was refresh. You know, it's refreshing to say, okay, here's this guy who's got his plan, and he's executing his plan. You know, and so it was nice to see that element of it rather than just some people fumbling about from one human civilization into the next.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot that was predictable. As I went through, I would just turn to India and say, you know, she's going to die. She's given the kid advice, so she's dead. You know, and I want it to be a little less than that. You know?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I don't know how else they would do it. I guess maybe the thing for me because I played the game, it already wasn't going to be a surprise anyway. And even in the games, you know, when someone's pretty much destined for doom and that sort of thing. But I think they've done a very good job of punching that up so that, like in this last episode, seeing the ending, I wasn't taken aback. I wasn't, you know, and I mean, I could, on the emotional side, I think it was heavier because of the predicament of the victims, if you will, right? And I'm talking about life predicament, not just how it happened and all that, but just their situation in life. And your heart goes out to the one especially. You know, you just, oh my God, that's just brutal, right? But the thing that made it so enjoyable for me, and this is why I brought it up, is that I think the thing that made it so enjoyable for me is watching Helena watch it. So that I can see it through her eyes. You know what I mean? And because she's not as jaded as I am that way. She's not.
Sure.
And so seeing her reaction, which was very, very empathetic, was very, I don't want to say satisfying, but it was, no, I'll use that. It was satisfying, you know, and kind of like watching Baby Yoda, you know. I think I'm a little more inured to that sort of thing, but oh my goodness, you watch that with someone, you know, your significant other, and every single time the reaction is going to be same, but it's fun watching them just without a shot at resistance, just falling right into, oh my God, he's so cute.
Yeah.
Well, see, I mean,
kind of thing. So
they could put other surprises in there, you know, and
they
like
could.
in Halo, for example, when they gave Master Chief a love scene, that came out of the blue. You know, that was unexpected.
Yeah.
You know.
See, I think Halo needed to be more predictable.
How do we subvert these expectations?
Have Master Chief dig in his
show his ass.
Get him a shovel.
That was a great idea. I'm digging for old memories in my backyard. This is
Master
great.
Chief in his Mjolnir armor, 8 feet tall, sitting there just chunk, looking for his old scrapbook. You know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I'm going to keep watching the series because, you know, it's entertaining enough. But, you know, and for Indy and I, it's really about the ability to joke about the show as we go along. Because I know, like the guy, the main actor who's
Pedro
watching
Pascal.
it. Yeah. I watched him in another Netflix series about Pablo Escobar, and I thought he was excellent in that program. Right. And so it was nice to see him in this. Yeah, but I don't know. There's just elements of it, and I don't think I'm getting tired of the apocalypse genre. I'm getting to a point where I want something else from it. It's become very formulaic.
See, I don't think I could get tired of the apocalypse genre because it is real. It is something that definitely has happened and will happen and continues to happen in smaller or larger degree around, you know, the world and throughout history. Sure. So it is a thing.
Yeah, but I just
yeah,
mostly get frustrated by how dumb people are portrayed in post-apocalyptic
Oh my God,
shows
yes.
and movies. Like the only two smart people in The Walking Dead were Shane and Daryl. Like everybody else should have died a long time ago. It's just like that movie is just, or that show is just so awful. From like, let's make bad decisions, and whatnot, and
as soon
even
as they wrapped up one of those arcs, they just replayed the same arc with a different.
Yeah. And like even in The Last of Us, you're like, oh no, Ron Swanson, decided to take the easy way out with his boyfriend, and I left all my stuff to you.
But
and
what's an example
of that treasure trove, you chose a bolt action rifle with no scope to take with you. Not like 7 pistols, not like, you know what I mean? There were infinitely better choices that
or
you
just
could
stay
have
there
made to arm yourself, or literally stay there in this, But he can't stay there because they're trying to get her to someplace safe, and he's trying to save his brother.
It won't work. Stay there.
I get them trying to go somewhere.
So her blood
but like one bolt action rifle with no scope is not what you choose in case you're going to have to fight off bands of warring humans who are looking for your resources, or a bunch of the infected clicker dudes or whatever. Like, come on, that was a terrible choice. He's like,
or why are you
don't
taking
need to
the
say
freeway
R15
through town?
Well,
I mean, come on.
But bear in mind, people aren't smarter than that, because how many people accept it? How many people who wrote it thought this is what we're going to do?
Yeah, well, all the dumb ones would have died over the last 20 years in this setting.
But they haven't died yet, which is why
I know. But he is portrayed as smarter than that.
No, I get it. What I'm saying is that the ones who would make those decisions are the ones who are writing the show.
Yes, the first to be eaten.
So because they have not gone through that and been culled or changed or weeded out or whatever you want to say, they're the ones writing the show. That's why the characters make those decisions. It is what it is, right? If you have someone who's writing it, what's a brilliantly written one? The Godfather. Okay, you have someone who's writing a mobster movie, right? Who has experience, who has knowledge of, who's able to think tactically and all that. You get that. If you have someone who's not, you end up with I don't know, whatever Nick Cage fare you want to go see. So,
by the way, have you guys seen, speaking of Nick Cage, The Unbearable Weight of Magnificent Talent or whatever? That one is really funny. Also with Pedro Pascal.
Right. I was going to say another outing with Pedro Pascal.
That's right. So it's good. Like that movie, that was really funny. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
Yes. A lot of bad decisions.
A lot of bad decisions.
See, but because the other aspects are good, or they're meant to be kind of goofy that way, you don't mind those bad decisions, so anyway, I have started reading, to let you know, The Red Angel. Okay. And Rich has as well. Now I wanted to see, Rich, what do you think of it so far?
Well, Angron's one of my favorite characters.
Didn't ask that.
Right. We didn't ask you. Stay on topic.
What did you think of the book, sir? Go ahead. Sorry.
It's great.
It's great? Okay. Now, I knew he would say that.
Now, Sean, Angron is one of my new favorite characters that I've just come to discover. And I really think he deserves his own. We can really explore the depths of his rage.
Now, I will let you know, I'm not a fan of this book. Okay. So this is an example of one that I'm not a fan of. So I'm interested to see, because I knew Rich would be. Okay. And I got nothing against Rich for that. That's, I can see why you would like it, Rich. And I'm not, that's not a shot or anything at you. I can see that. But I can tell you why it wouldn't be for me. So I'm interested to see, as if you guys ever do, what you think of it yourselves. But I was thinking about what Mark was saying about how the performances, and especially in the audio ones, can make a world of difference, and I think you're spot on with that observation. For some, it'll click. for Rich it clicks. For me, it doesn't. So, be interesting to see. Kelly, you had some thoughts that I know you wanted to share about where you are right now. Your overall thoughts.
Well, I don't know how in depth you want to get into that, but it's,
Did you ever see? By the way, Mark, if you haven't seen it, there's a not a documentary. I don't know what to call it. It's like watching a mini series, but with historians who talk about it as it goes along. Mm-hmm. So it's shot like a mini series kind of thing. With the fall of Constantinople is the first one. Mehmed, who is the Ottoman Sultan, goes and sacks Constantinople, and it's about the actual fall of Constantinople, and with Emperor Constantine, who, by the way, I like a lot. That guy, I liked him a lot. If you're going to have an emperor, that's the kind of emperor you want to have. And the second season, which I'm watching now, is Mehmed versus Vlad the Impaler, because apparently Vlad and him did go to war. Vlad was actually a prisoner to Mehmed's father. Vlad's father had to go there and show obeisance and prove his loyalty and all. And he said, "Here, take my kids," and all that stuff. So in that series, they talk about impaling and how it was done. And man, that was that was brutal. That was brutal, and I think you would enjoy it quite a lot. Kelly, I think you would enjoy it too.
What is it on? Where are you watching it?
It's on Netflix.
Netflix, okay.
Yeah.
And it's called what again? The series?
It's if you look up Vlad the Impaler, or not even the Impaler, just Vlad versus, it'll come right up. It's Vlad versus Mehmed, but I don't want to tell you how to spell Mehmed. So
is this another one of those series where they do tests in a lab to see what would happen?
Oh, right.
Remember, I said it's shot like a miniseries.
Okay, all right.
With
I didn't catch that part. I wasn't listening.
I know. With historians who actually talk about it as they go along. Mm-hmm. So, like, he does a thing in there that's kind of like the Red Wedding, right? This is something he really did. He did it on Easter.
That might be where the Red Wedding got it from. Who knows?
Right. That's actually, there was a couple things that were inspirations for it, right? And this was one of them. Invited all these people over who were his rivals, and not like military and all that, but like political rivals and all that. Killed them all. had them, and midway through the meal, says, "All right, I've had it with all you vipers, and brought you here so I could get rid of you." And had every man and his wife taken outside and impaled, and then he would stake them up along the road. Going through the countryside, much like in Game of Thrones again, where Dany staked up the masters, or nailed them up and all that. So there's a lot of interesting things in there with that.
What? I thought George R.R. Martin just made all that stuff up. What?
Yeah, no, you didn't.
He's a lousy plagiarist.
How the hell did we get here from Angron?
I was wondering that myself.
How wouldn't you get there from Angron?
That's true. How wouldn't we?
Come on. You don't see the similarities? Come on.
I don't think Angron has the patience to do that. Now, Rich,
he doesn't. Angron does not.
Angron would have just got down to business.
That's right. He's so angry.
He is. He is rage. He is rage. But Kelly. So share your thoughts. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I took you off on that thing, but I wanted you to know about that because I really want your opinion on it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So book 2, I thought was a little bit of a letdown from book 1. Mm-hmm. I did not dig. There's certain elements of this that I don't like. I think that the guys who are writing the books struggle a bit to write for female characters. If I'm honest, I don't think they're at the top of their game when they do that. Mm-hmm. I think there's a number of elements that they bring you into to follow that really are just dead ends. They don't really go anywhere. And I don't know why I spent the last 20 minutes of my life paying attention to something that really has no significant payoff for any reason in the story. And then following Imperial Guard around, I've determined is not really all that fun for me. You know what the outcome is for Imperial Guard. Yeah. You know what it's going to be. I don't care what their name is. I'm in a book now where some Imperial Guard run in, and
The
Mark,
one
I
with
know
the
you haven't
train?
gotten to the book yet. No, I'm beyond that.
Okay.
So there's these, these sort of loose bands of Imperial Guard refugees, meandering through the city, and they come upon a Space Marine, and they try to tell him their name, and he's like, "I don't care." and I have to
Yeah.
say,
I
I
actually like
agree.
that part. I like that part. I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's that. So I found those moments really kind of a slog, and they doubled down on them. I mean, they went into some detail,
Yeah.
but the thing that bugs me is then when it gets to a fight with Space Marines, Space Marine versus Space Marine type of battles, they just gloss through that. They're like, the front ranks are dead, and I was like, what? I mean, we're going into more detail about Beastmen attacking Imperial Guard than we are about, the Space Marines who are supposed to be this massive force for the Imperium.
Space Marines are
And
boring. Beastmen are amazing.
yeah, exactly. So I thought
See,
I thought some of that was
I
bad.
honestly think, because remember when I first started talking about this, remember that was one of the things I brought up, was that there are parts about the stories that I don't care about, and generally it has to do
Yeah.
with the Imperial Guard. I hate having to sit there and listen to Yay and her train going across the the dunes and all that crap, and I want to get to Jagatai, and I want to get to Sanguinius. I want to get to any of the other cons.
Right.
The White Scar I love that part where he's walking across the the desert and just kind of, these people are already dead. Why am I here with what am I concerning myself with these fools for? That kind of thing.
Right.
I like a lot of that stuff. I don't know why they spend as much time as they do on that, other than to say, I know people like Mark, for some reason, do like the Imperial Guard. and so maybe I was wondering this from someone like Mark, do those parts speak to you? Do those parts connect with you? Because that's apparently one of the things that they do for authors, is when you come into their employ, can you write a Imperial Guard book? If you can write that, then we'll let you write something else that's cool. And I'm not sure why they do that. I'd rather just have cool, Space Marine Astartes stuff and other things, Eldar and Necrons and all that. I don't particularly enjoy watching the low level grunt. You know what I mean? But I'm wondering if there is an aspect of the audience that just loves that, and that's how they figure that's their connection. That's how they can see this universe, because they can't connect with the other stuff as easily. So I was wondering, Mark, is that maybe something that you think is attractive to that aspect?
I don't know, but see, the Imperial Guard are the everyman. Like, we can identify with them because they're just some space dudes with guns.
I can't.
Right. Whereas everything else, we have to, like, we aren't Space Marines, we aren't genetically modified superhumans, we aren't Primarchs, we aren't Chaos Demons. Like, all of that other stuff, we're like, oh, okay, cool. But like an Imperial Guard guy, it's like, here, take this gun. You used to do this, but you don't do that anymore. Now you're a grunt. Like, people, I think, understand that a little bit.
Well,
easier.
I'll be honest with
now,
you.
that's not the same thing as what you just asked. I understand that. Like, I don't mind the Imperial Guard. And again, I don't think you do this entire story and just focus on Space Marines or just focus on the Primarchs. So, like, you got to cover all aspects of this
you have to have a
endeavor
view of the Force,
and that's what we're doing. And I for one am loving it.
I think you cover it by saying 1,000 Imperial Guard died, and now let's cut to the Space Marine battle.
Or
no, like, for real though, like, I really liked that whole thing about the Beastmen. That was really well done, because Beastmen are, let's face it, they're a throwback to the old Warhammer 40K, like Rogue Trader time. They're not really mentioned very much.
I did like
you used to be able to get Beastman Imperial Guard that were not Chaos.
I did like the backstory of that Beastman, and talking about how he grew up shunned and hated and all that stuff.
As well, he should.
Gave it a reason, if you will. I liked that. I like that. The only Imperial Guard that I really, really care about was Katsuhiro. I think that's the only one that I'd be interested.
Well, he's
to...
the only
Even
one
him
we're following, right? I mean, the rest of them were.
No, you follow a lot of other people. And
okay.
most of the time, I just want to hear their name and the fact that their head blew apart like an overripe fruit. You know, that's
right. I mean, look, there's elements of it. Like, I agree with you, Mark. They're supposed to be the everyman. I don't feel like I can relate to them very much because, you know, I didn't grow up in whatever hive world they were plucked out of. But, you know, it's an element of.
I've seen the neighborhood you grew up in.
Okay, fair. But, you know, I didn't become an Imperial Guardsman. I elevated myself above that to become a low-level sort of administrative functionary.
Good for you.
No, but there's elements of it that really bug me, like the battles themselves with the Imperial Guard. They seem to go way the hell back to World War I. You know, I mean, you've got people running around with whistles, and you got them lining up, you know, in firing lines and things like. The one thing I would want to do if I had Imperial Guard is not group those bastards together. You know, spread the hell out. Let's try not to have you die because somebody throws a vortex grenade.
So, I think personally, with the Imperial Guard, the reason why they pay attention to them in this big long story of the Heresy, it's to show the dichotomy between the transhumans, who are the Space Marines, the Custodes, the Primarchs, you know, at some point, and also just like you said, the everyman, right? So we're looking at a grunt soldier in a conflict that they have absolutely no value. You know, one soldier is 1% of 1% of 1% of anything. And the fact that when they focus in on guys like Katsuhiro, who is exceptional as a guardsman, but he's also exceptionally lucky as a guardsman. Like
right.
he gets away with a lot of stuff only by the skin of his teeth because he was in the right place at the right time, which might show, you know, the blessing of the Emperor, which is a sub theme of the entire story. You know, is the Imperial faith.
Agreed.
Every time.
Well,
couldn't agree more. Yes.
It's very. I like.
It wouldn't be a podcast without that, would it?
If it was all Marines all the time, it would be
awesome.
Well,
so boring.
It would be just it would be bolter porn. You need to see the counterpoint of they're the strength, but they're also they're also
serving. Look, Sean, it can't be all bolter on bolter action. Right? Sometimes you got to mix it up.
But what it does is it shows that the Marine. At some point, you see the difference between the Marines that are loyal, who serve humanity, even though they don't really like humanity very much, because they don't consider the humanity valuable to what they're doing. But it also shows.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Another great point. Very salient.
Insightful.
I like how it freezes now on his smiling face. There you go. I like that even better. Yeah, the pops every 10 seconds or so of a different face.
But what I have yet to see in the entire thing is anything with, you know, actual regular guardsmen. Everybody's some sort of conscript into this greater battle. So that's even harder to see them as like the everyman, you know, because I don't shy away from combat movies or you know, studying history of combat and things like that.
Unless it's Vlad the Impaler, apparently. If they're from Wallachia, suddenly
that's right. That's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
So I get where a relationship comes from, but I don't feel it into what appears to be a conscript into World War I, where, you know, all right, line up in your firing lines, and when I blow the whistle, you're going to shoot at the big, nasty, ugly thing running towards you. And side note, you're all going to die.
Mm. So has there been aspects that you have enjoyed of the
Yes,
other books?
I'm going to say out of book 2, I enjoyed a lot of how they tried to deal with Angron and the fact that, you know, he had gone full bore into the blood for the blood god. It doesn't matter where it comes from, even if it's my own.
See, I did like that. The fact that, you know, they always bill him as rage incarnate, uncontrollable, just absolute murder, you know, and all that. And you think about that, you think about Khorne, right? If you actually are a follower of Khorne, that doesn't leave you many options. You know, as soon as you open your eyes, you're swinging, you know, and you swing until you pass out from exhaustion, I guess, until you wake up again, right? Doesn't leave many options. And so Angron, as the epitome of that, should be this he's just murdering. That's it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're going to have a tool like that on the battlefield, how are you going to keep it? What are you going to do with it when it's not in use? So I did like that fact that they were, you know, trying to figure out what to do with him. You would have thought maybe that if Horus was such a good general, he might have thought about that before he sent.
That's part of the element of it, is that Horus is simply a watered down version of his father, the Emperor. And so Horus, just like the Emperor, doesn't really think through everything before they do it. And so that's why Horus ultimately in the end is going to fail.
It's just weird I don't know if they did it. What's that?
If you don't know how the Horus Heresy ends at this point, that's not my problem.
Because you know the last book, of course, is called The End and the Death.
Oh, who dies? Is Sanguinius going to be okay?
In all honesty, you know who dies, and it ain't the Emperor. So
no.
Yeah, no, but there were elements of the writing of Angron that I didn't like, which is, you know, really that it was just this very straightforward for him saying, you know, blood and skulls. But then I had to take that step back because I always liked the Chaos God of Khorne because it's a very straightforward affair. Just go kill everything. I don't have to futz around with anything else. And so I stop and think about that. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe that's how that would go, really.
And you know, Kelly, I'll say this. That is the biggest problem I have with the Angron book that I'm reading. And this is not ruining anything because it says this under the premise. Angron gathers together all the, you know, world leaders he can to go on this crusade thing, right? He's going to go and dominate some or just murder something. Well, that's fine, except how do you call them all together? And then how do you get there and not arrive with like one guy who's still there, and that one guy being Angron, because in all the time you're transiting from here to there, ideally you're going to be killing, because that's what Khorne is about. So Khorne as a chaos god seems to be lacking in any sort. It's like he would have fizzled out because there's no room for anything else. Well, my lord, we're going to need, if we're going to go there, we're going to need to, you know, or, you know, there's just nothing you can do. There's no food, there's no maintenance. You don't go.
These navigators are easy to kill.
You know, there's just nothing going on there other than that. Slaanesh, Nurgle, and Tzeentch at least would be able to do all the intermediary things to get there. Khorne's guys got to have some sort of thing where they just show up, bang, and they're, you know, off and running.
But they need to be kept. They need to be kept isolated during that entire time because they're all descending into a rage madness.
And that's the problem, is that if you're going to write a story about that stuff, you got to address that, you know, otherwise you are compromising on what this god is supposed to be about. When Slaanesh has people going from one place to another, you picture just some mad, like Hellraiser orgy going on where they show up at the end with all kinds of cuts and bruises. And nails,
getting there is having fun.
Fluids everywhere and all kinds of things, right? But they're able to get there. With Khorne's thing, how do you do that? And Khorne can't sit there and logically, Khorne can't sit there and say, okay, yes, I'm about murder. Yes, skulls for my throne, blood all the time. Don't care where it comes from, just as long as it's flowing. But not now. Okay, just hang on. And I know we hate psychers. I know we hate that, and we hate all that magic stuff. But we need to have some witches and stuff so that we're able to get through the warp and go there. And I'm going to give you some magic things that I made. But don't forget, I'm against magic, okay? I'm against that, and I'm against all the psychic stuff and all that. His is the one that I don't know. I understand the purpose of the character and how it would have spawned, right?
Yeah.
And it makes sense that way. But to be able to continue doesn't. It seems like those guys wouldn't get any further than, you know, their home world. That's it. And I don't know. That's my biggest issue with the character. So seeing that in a larger group, like with the Horus Heresy, where they got to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with this mad dog? We got to figure out some way to lock him up until we need him. That part I dug.
Enter the Painted Count,
Yeah,
which
the
was
Painted Count. I love the fact that he is so. There's a lot of stuff they've had with the Painted Count, and his character, Mark. I know this is going to sound like an insult, and I don't mean it to be. He reminds me so much of like Mark. He does, and it's just fun for me to watch this character, because Mark would play him like this, just overly confident, just being told, no, you can't do this, and yeah, I can, I'm gonna do it, and all the way up until he ends up just falling afoul of his own hubris, right? And Mark, of course, is his chaos god, sitting there laughing as he's forcing this character to do that stuff. But yeah, I enjoy the Painted Count, and I love the fact they used him for that.
I enjoyed sort of how the story played out for the Painted Count, and I think that for me anyway, it satisfies this greater thought that I have of how chaos actually invests in the heresy, right? That here he comes thinking that he's Billy Badass and he's going to take on this fight with this other captain, and that he's got this demon blade, and then the demon just says, yeah, no, you think it's all you, but it's really me.
Yeah.
And the deal that you think you've made that's going to make you strong is really only because I wish to give it to you.
Yeah.
And that whole conversation between the demon and the Painted Count as he's on his last breath was phenomenal. I love that entire bit of the book. I thought that was a great way to take that character.
Yep.
Yeah.
I concur. That was well done.
So I'm eager to see as you go along. What else did you like about it? Anything else that comes to mind? I know you mentioned you mentioned that in the last one. Sorry, go ahead.
What? No, I mean I liked a little bit of the Sanguinius storyline. Again, I don't like how they portray Sanguinius as far as voice acting. I don't mind sort of the writing for the character, but the voice acting I think is always lacking. I like that. I don't know how I felt about the Jagatai getting down there in the mud with the other Marines and going to town. I don't know. It feels like they keep trying to balance this out in the book, and I know you asked me what I like, but I just got more complaints. It feels
Kelly
like
likes to complain.
I do. It feels like they're still trying to strike a balance with this. Like there's this element of you can never truly gauge sort of a strength of any one person. And again, in book 2, I felt like they didn't really give a lot of due to Space Marines or the Primarchs. I just want to see some other balance in the book, and I think it gets there. As we move along, I think book 2 was
I think
just a little fragmented.
I think as I wish you could read some. As I went through the stories, I was able to read the the stories they have for the Primarchs. I wanted to make sure that it was pronounced correctly. That's how you pronounce it. So just so you know, the Primarchs books, like Fulgrim, very good. Love that journey. Matter of fact, I can't think of one I haven't liked really. I liked Angron's. Angron's was really good. But seeing all of those things and who they are as personalities, maybe that'll fill in some of the gaps for you, give you some of that you're looking for. But they do have a lot of that out there. But I've really enjoyed those two. Really a fun journey looking at them. Even like Rogel Dorn's. I know people give him a hard time about being just stoic and one note and all that. But I liked his too. So
what's that one?
Rogel Dorn.
Oh,
Rogel Dorn.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a bit. I like that it fleshes out a little bit of the story of the 40K universe that I've not really delved into and things like that. I like that it gives life to some of these other elements. I need them to find balance with the Imperial Guard and other things.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say,
there's more Imperial Guard coming.
No, I trust me, I know. But it feels like it's getting there a little bit, or at least, in some books it hits the mark a little bit more than others. Book 1, pretty good, long, but good. Book 2, a little bit of a downturn. Book 3 was like we went further. And book 4, where I'm about a quarter of the way through that. I mean, I'm enjoying that one thoroughly. I mean, that's
Have you been introduced to John Grammaticus yet?
No.
I think he's in the one he's reading now.
Yeah, so I'll be very interested once you get to that part. What you think of that?
But see, he's not going to have a full vision of him because Grammaticus was in so many of the periphery books or peripheral books to the story. It's kind of, I don't know. There's a group of Eternals, or Perpetuals they're called, where they're immortal. And he's one of those. And there's a number of them, and they've been in a bunch of the other stories and stuff. So it's going to be kind of, I don't know. If you haven't read those, if you don't,
it's going to be jarring.
It's probably going to be weird. Just, I don't know why we're following this kind of thing. But there's a lot that goes with those characters.
I just would like to hear whether he feels the same, because I would prefer that they just weren't in the stories at all, or just very
Yeah, but you're wrong. So.
All right, and on that happy note, I think we've reached the end of an episode. We've
and by the way, so everyone knows what I relate to, and the reason I'm able to pay the most attention to this, think of it in a tier level. Okay, I know you were talking about the trouble with people relating to a Marine because they're not a Marine and all that stuff. I know what you're talking about. I feel the same way, but from the other direction, Emperor. Okay, you got my full attention because I can relate. Everything below that. Primarch or Primarch, if you prefer to, say it in that weird way.
Relate to the master of
Marine and so
on my level.
On down the line, I can relate less and less. There's less of my care, if you will. So Emperor, Malkador, maybe Primarch, up there, Custodes and Marines and all that. I'm probably middle, less caring. So there you go.
Okay. By the time we get down to the Imperial Guard level, you're like,
right where you
like
are.
Me.
Yeah.
Below them is Euphrates Healer.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys, and we'll convene next week. And I'll see you then.
Okay. Bye.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.